Give me some thoughts on the 5: maximizing income, minimize expense, invest, protect, and optimize.
I mean, this is what, like, I just love how simple it is. And this is what drives me nuts in terms of like, oh, I've got a financial advisor for what, for what you do. And I'm like, no, you don't. Because all they're doing, they're just jumping straight to number 3.
Right. You have an investment advisor, not a financial advisor.
Right. Look, there's nothing wrong with a financial advisor, but all they're doing is saying, what's the extra money you have left over? And how do we grow it? How do we play offense? It was Bear Bryant, the late Alabama head coach, football coach, that said, offense sells tickets, but defense wins championships.
Oh, I've never heard the first part of that statement. I've heard defense wins championships, but I've never heard the first part that offense sells tickets.
Yeah. Yeah. And so he's the one who said that quote. And I was just like, the financial advisor is only showing you in terms of how to play offense. And then you realize you start to get into this weird mind fuck in terms of like, I don't know how I'm ever going to outrun my expenses and create an asset or enough assets enough to be able to live and maintain the lifestyle that I have or that I want to have. And so the only way to realistically do this, again, forget the Justin Donalds of the world. The only way for the average person to really do this is to say, how do we, again, I'm not sacrificing the lifestyle, but how do we just control the costs of living the life that we want to live? That's saying how much of your income is being siphoned off to these fixed debt payments. How do we get rid of those debt payments efficiently so that there is more money left at the end of each month to then save, grow, invest, or whatever your goddamn dream is, that now becomes a reality, not someday from now, a hell of a lot sooner, because that's really why we're working, is for us to fulfill our dreams.
Yeah. I love, man, you're speaking my language, because for years, I tried to talk people into taking adjustable rate mortgages. I was like, look, especially in Southern California, which has a very transient feel to it, because people come and go for the entertainment industry, income stratification in Los Angeles, people moving up and down the pay scale is probably greater than anywhere else in the world, right? I remember going to see 2 open houses that were within a few miles of each other in Los Feliz, California. This was probably back in 2010, 2011. And one house was right next to the $20 million Brad and Angelina compound where they had bought like 5 properties and put them together. And we were looking at a multi-million-dollar house. And then literally 1.8 miles away, crossing Sunset down by the hospital, we were looking at a $370,000, threeplex on a street that I would not be caught dead walking down at night. And I'm like a pretty big dude. And so it was mind-boggling. And so, because we have a transient society in Los Angeles, because people are moving up and down the pay scale super fast, I would try to tell people, I'm like, hey man, the national average, and it's worse in California, is the average American stays in their house about 7 years. They keep their mortgage about 4 years. They refinance, they pay it off, they take cash out of it, etc. In California, it's worse than that. So the average California stays in their house about 6 years, and the average California keeps their mortgage about 3.5 to 4 years. Why are you sacrificing the higher monthly payment or the higher debt or the higher interest rate in order to get into a 30-year fix? Take the adjustable rate mortgage that's fixed for a year or 3 years or interest only or 5 years, because you're not going to stay here long enough to recognize the gains of having a 30-year fixed mortgage. But they're like, well, my parents told me that there's these things called liar loans and I can't get stuck in a liar loan, and they've owned their house in Sandusky, Ohio for 39 years, and when they paid it off, they burned the deed in a barbecue and invited the whole family over. And I'm like, what did your parents do? And they're like, oh, well, she was a nurse at a hospital and my dad was, a teacher at the local school, and they had a pension and a union and they were going to stay there forever. I'm like, what do you do? They're like, oh, I'm a commercial scout and I'm probably going to move where I live every couple years and I travel 6 months out of the year. I'm like, yeah, you don't have the same lifestyle. You shouldn't have the same mortgage and the same debt profile. And I tried to have that conversation for probably a decade. And I just finally gave up because I'm like, fuck it. They don't want to listen to me anyway. Take your 30-year fixed, and then for about 10 years, they'd be back every year refinancing at a lower rate because the rates dropped. And I'm like, you could have had this lower rate the whole time. It blows my mind, Howard. Just trying to work in finance and lead them to water to get them to drink. It's like an exercise in futility.
I appreciate you just bringing out Chris Farley and like Zelensky Auto Parts when you did
that. About 2 years ago, I looked like Chris Farley. I've lost a little bit of weight since then, so I'm happy that I just sounded like him and didn't look like him. All right, so maximize income. Think about everybody jumps to number 3, which is the investment advisor. And you're right. I've got a good friend who's like, Scott, man, like I'm ending my working career with $6 million in the bank. And if I do my little spreadsheet for how long I might live and how long my younger wife might live, I got about an 87% chance of getting there. I'm like, how's that possible? Like, you did all the right things. You live a pretty frugal lifestyle. Your expenses are not absurd. And like 6 million ain't going to get you to death. But you almost can't, like you said, outrun your living expenses by just investing. So I appreciate that comment, even though it might have been a little bit of a throwaway line for you. I like that. Hey, this quick interruption is brought to you by me, Scott Groves, the host of the On the Edge podcast. This podcast is brought to you by me. I'm a loan officer who can help you with a mortgage in all 50 states across the United States. I also coach loan officers. So if you are a home buyer who's looking to get a mortgage, if you're a realtor who's looking to partner with an awesome loan officer, or if you're a loan officer looking for coaching, get in touch with me. It's those sources of revenue that allow us to produce this podcast and get out a new episode to you every week for the last couple of years. So if you're looking for a mortgage, if you're looking for a mortgage lender to partner with, or you're looking for a mortgage coach, I'm your guy. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming.